Gotta love that new software upgrade that mutes you and keeps you muted every time you step out of the show to play a little bit of music. Hey, I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from the Winnipeg Free Press. Together, we are Kenny and Renny. This is the Kenny and Renny post-game show following the Winnipeg Jets' first win in 11 games, or 12 games, I guess, is what it would be. Sorry, just need to apologize out of the gate. Got into a little bit of travel hell here today, delayed flights and all these kind of things, and left my computer behind on the plane. So when I got to the hotel, I had to go back to the airport to pick it up. Got here. This is the earliest we could get up. So thank you for your patience. We really do appreciate it. And I thought I'd do a little something different for the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive. So hop in and let's go for a ride. I hope you don't criticize me for being lazy or it's not quite a rerun, although it's like those episodes that you sometimes see in shows where they do callbacks to like past shows and things like that. It's going to be a little bit of that. I thought it would be fun if we just kind of went and just borrowed the analysis from the last time the Jets won, because that was a 5-1 game as well. And I thought it would be kind of similar, and maybe I'll just rerun the analysis kind of thing. And because I mean, if it was good back then, it'll be good this time around. So I've got a script here that's built from the last time, from, some of the comments that were made in the chat room, from some of the, storylines that were going around town, a lot of what the media said at that time. And so I don't want to plagiarize, what the media said, but you guys will know who you are when I read this off. So basically, it is clear, it is evident. Is it, is there qualitative data on this? No, there's not. There doesn't need to be, because if enough people say it, it's going to be true. Clearly, the Winnipeg Jets are a different team when Eric Comrie steps into the net. And clearly, they gain confidence when Eric Comrie steps into the net. It's the only way you can explain what's going on here, right? The other goaltender was in there, lost 10 straight games. What did you do? You switched it up, and you get the goaltender in there. And how else can you possibly explain? I don't think there is another explanation for this. The last time that Eric Comrie was in net, the Winnipeg Jets scored 5 goals. So we don't need proof. We don't need to make links or anything like that here. What we can say beyond a shadow of a doubt is that, Eric Comrie went into this game, sparked the Winnipeg Jets, gave them confidence. And then that's what you see, that's what happens when he's in that. Now, I have to be honest, I was on the plane for a good chunk of this game, so I didn't see all the saves. What I did see, from Eric Comrie, it didn't look like he was challenged a lot, but that could be because he was playing big and boring, right? So sometimes those saves that are made, right in the middle of the crest, those things were going bar down, folks. But big and boring takes, a save that looks like it's not a very good save, and it's actually a genius save dressed up as big and boring because of the way that the goaltender is playing it in that situation. So I don't think there's a lot more to say here on this script, other than I think I've got all the points covered, except this note at the top says, read only if Connor Hellebuck in net. Okay, sorry. I'm going to have to backtrack on this here. Sorry, throw everything I just said out the window. Chuck it out. The Jets clearly were given some kind of confidence boost by Connor Hellebuck before they came out onto the ice. They took that and they surged. And I think the only difference between the Winnipeg Jets in this game with Eric Comrie in the net is if Connor Hellebuck had been in net, they actually would have won this game 5-0, because the shots that Eric Comrie let in this game, Connor Hellebuck wouldn't have let in, because that's what the script has said here for a while, that he lets in the shots that Connor Hellebuck wouldn't let in. And in fact, so 5-0 is probably what the score would have been here if Connor Hellebuck was in net. That's wrong too, because probably he would have come in and the Jets would have had that much more confidence because Connor Hellebuck was in net, and they would have won that game 8-0 or 7-0 or something like that. So I'm trying here. I'm just borrowing the analysis that I see out there in these situations. The last time the Winnipeg Jets won against the Washington Capitals, they won 5-1. And in spite of the fact that the Winnipeg Jets only allowed 2 shots in the first period of that game, it wasn't the Winnipeg Jets, the team. Don't give them credit for a good game played. It was the confidence that they got, the boost that they got from Connor Hellebuyck returning to the lineup. So that was on him. This one is on him too. I'm still trying to figure out how it is, but we'll work on it. And you know what? We should bring in the man with the best music in the business to work on it. But before we do that, let's shut down the Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent opening drive. And let's do so by telling you that this January, it's time to Toyota at Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent. Finance the new 2026 BZ XLE all-electric SUV from $158 weekly for 60 months at 1.49% with $5,599 down payment. But hurry, the offer ends February 2nd. So visit Jim Pattison Toyota on Regent for a test drive today. All right, time to bring in the man with the best music in the business. Let's get Kenyon here, folks. That's fun. That's fun. Kenny, if I've learned anything from this opening, it's that when I don't do my hair for the show, I get ripped. I get ripped on it. Frank Guzzi saying, "Did Sean just wake up?" There's a bunch more of these comments in here. So I know a standard has been set. I need to do my hair when I come in here, no matter how much travel hell I've been through. And I know that I'm falling well short of the standard that you are setting up here, because you look, that tie, that outfit, Ken, looking like $1 million. And of course, here, because you went on down to Vittorio Rossi, walked in, loudly proclaimed Kenny and Renny sent you. In fact, you said, "Hey, this is Kenny. I'm here. Thanks for having me." You probably said to them, is what I would expect that you would have said. You could do the same thing as Ken. Walk down there, loudly proclaim Kenny and Renny sent you. Walk in, ask for Frankie and the boys, and you'll walk out looking like Kenny, not like Renny, who looked like he was maybe dumpster diving before he came here. Ken, a long time since we've been able to talk about a win for the Winnipeg Jets here. They get one done in convincing fashion here tonight. What'd you take away from it?
Yeah, it was a lot of check marks on the boxes that have been left as an empty space on the bingo card during the last month and change here, Sean. Slump busting at its finest. Vlad Nemestikov, first shift after being a healthy scratch with a impressive redirection on a point shot. You've got Cole Koepke with another fourth line goal. Jonathan Toews with his first since November 11th, first goal that is. Mark Scheifele getting himself back going after, a little bit of a strange stretch of time for him. I mean, yes, the game in Toronto, exceptional, couple assists yesterday, but just hasn't kind of been as sharp as we're used to seeing. Eric Comrie has had, 3 rough goes or 4 rough goes, lost 4 consecutive games, 18 goals against. He told a great story. I was writing the Gamer, but Mike McIntyre has a great sidebar on Eric Comrie at winnipegfreepress.com, giving incredible credit to his wife, Haley, for providing a great reminder. Sean, remember I mentioned to you after the game in Toronto, Comrie just devastated. First in the room as he was undressing, taking off his equipment and then walking out of the rink. I mean, Eric Comrie is one of the most positive people on the planet. And he was absolutely devastated with that 6-5 loss where the Jets were just unable to hold that 4-1 lead. And through 2 periods, he didn't have a ton of work, but in the third, he was busy. I mean, finished with 23 saves. And just Haley put a couple pictures in Eric's car on the way to the rink to kind of remind him about the joy in the game. And Eric is a guy who feels a ton of joy, and he got that joy back on his drive to the rink. And His teammates followed suit and did an excellent job, and it was a pretty tidy game overall. Again, third period, the Jets sat back a little bit, which is natural when a team
Score effects.
Yes, exactly. So, the folks at Natural Stat Trick say it's 11-0 in high danger chances. Now, Eric did a nice job in the third, Sean, but to me, this is another great example of I didn't count 11 high danger chances. I didn't feel like Eric was bombarded in the third. Yes, he made a couple of very solid saves, but to me, most of the shots were not of the 10 bell variety. I think that Eric did an excellent job and was sound, but I didn't think he was under siege in the third by any stretch. And that's not a knock on Comrie. It's just a reminder that I don't know that, again, the plotting system is still in it. It still needs a little bit of work for me, but Jets were sound defensively, which is important. But as you mentioned, Sean, now in the last year we talked about Eric Comrie's play and not getting a lot of run support. But in the last two games, Eric Comrie started the Jets, who have struggled to score goals, have put up a 5 spot in each of those games. So it was an important game for them on a number of fronts. Like I said, sound defensively, offense got going. We know the Kings have some injuries and they've been battling, going through a tough time themselves. But this was a game that allowed the Jets to exhale. Again, I see you in the chat room saying, this like the Vancouver game in November. Jets are back, baby. Jets are back. But for one night, the Jets were able to, and I mentioned, can't get the line in the copy in the free press very often, Sean, but did work in the old hot tub time machine and saying the Jets went back to a time when they weren't playing scared, when they weren't playing tentatively, and when they were able to play a little bit more freely and with some joy, and were able to be a little bit crisper. So, they deserve credit. This was an important game for them on a back-to-back. It could have been easy. Sean, we talk about schedule losses a lot and joke about that as well. LA is the team that was going in fresh on a back-to-back. Now they'll go into Edmonton at a time where, they're below the and frustrated with a lot of things. There's been plenty of talk about Jim Hiller's job security in various places, including from Hall of Famer Helene Elliott. So, two desperate teams, and the Jets showed a little bit more desperation and urgency in their game. And, as we've said at a various time back in November, Sean, now that urgency needs to be, sustained for a while and see what happens in that game against New Jersey, because the Devils are also coming in a little bit of shambles, if you will, Sean. I mean, they lost 9-0 once this week. So their team is going through a little, they're in one also. So it'll be interesting to see how the Jets respond, but this was something that you could see how much it was wearing on them. And I know you weren't there tonight because of the travel, but man, it was a festive atmosphere in the third period. You had the wave rolling for about 5 minutes of time. The sing-along chamber was emptied completely. Fans were fired up, and Sean, it goes back to, some people went wild as usual when Scott O'Neill said he needed more from everyone, including the fans, and it sounded like the fans took that to heart. They roared in that third period. They were into it all game, and it was a different vibe than what we've been seeing the last while here. So.
I wanted to get you to lean into that a little bit more, because the one thing that I take away from that is that call. Right now it's a Friday night, right? There's a little bit of an advantage to that. People want to head out, they want to do it up on a Friday night. Lots of places to go, enjoy the city of Winnipeg afterwards. So there's a little bit of help when it comes to that. But I would say I thought that it was well handled. I wasn't at that media availability that Scott O'Neill had said that and kind of made I wouldn't call it a plea to the fans, but just kind of like a communication to the fans, which if you listened to the show where we broke down Kevin Cheveldayoff's midseason presser, I thought was sorely needed, like communication between the organization and its fans. And I'll say this, I thought it was extremely well handled by Scott O'Neill. I thought he stepped into the void that was left behind and had a conversation with the fans. And I thought that was handled well. And one of the things that I thought, like right off the bat, when he started saying that, Ken, I thought to myself, like, this is a guy who's played before, right? Like, he's talking to you as a coach, but a lot of times, like, this is a guy who a lot of your grandparents and your parents rooted on Scott Arniel when he was playing. I mean, like, in order for me to root on Scott Arniel, which I did, as a young fan in the building when I was a kid, like I was doing it when I was, 5, 6, 7 years old, right? So he's been there before. If anyone understands the city of Winnipeg and its love of hockey, I kind of like that Scott Arniel ended up being the guy who spoke on this, Ken, because this is a guy who, like I said, your grandparents, your mom, your dad, your uncles, they were rooting him on back in the day. And Scott Arniel's understanding of the city of Winnipeg and the city of Winnipeg's hockey fans goes back further than I would suggest anyone in that organization. Would you agree, Ken?
And lives in this market, right?
And has lived in this market ever since, and has understood the heartbreak of losing the Winnipeg Jets, and who understood the hope created by the Manitoba Moose when they were coming back, who took part in that team as a player, then took part in that team as a captain, and then took part in that team as a coach, and has worked his way and has never left this market. Like, Scott Arniel understands the Winnipeg Jets. And I thought, before we get into the idea of what happened in this game and where he's trying to take the Winnipeg Jets, I thought he struck a really, really good balance, because I think when you get into the situation that fans are in now, and you can tell, Ken, because sometimes, the things that we say, sometimes I know the things that I say, people are kind of, bristle at. The idea that, I say, I think true fans show up, win or lose. That doesn't mean, and I get it, people have to spend a lot of money, all those kind of things. It doesn't mean that you write a blank check. You should expect something back for your dollars. You should expect that team to love you back and show they love you back as much as you show you love them. I thought what I felt when Scott Arniel addressed that issue was a guy who understands that love, and that love going both ways. Scott Arniel loves this market. He loves the hockey of the city of Winnipeg. He's intertwined with it now since the 80s, and going on all these decades later, understands it. And I thought he struck the perfect balance when he talked about that, saying, we need these fans. It's one of the things I've always said. Listen, when people tell you how great Montreal Canadiens hockey fans are, the reason they tell you that is, I think, and I've seen a lot of sports, I think what the Montreal Canadiens do best is when things aren't going well for their team and a lot of buildings get quiet, Montreal Canadiens fans get loud, and they understand the idea that this is when we're needed most. When things look the worst and a lot of teams sit on their hands because they're upset with how things are going, that's when they give things. And I think that Scott Arniel really got that point across. Like, we're hurting, we're limping, we're trying here, we're trying to get on the other side. It's not working. If there's a time that we needed you and we needed your energy, that time is now. And Ken, it sounded like it on the broadcast that I was listening to. You texted me and told me that the atmosphere there in the third was like absolutely celebrational. The way that you described it, I felt like there were people crowd surfing and beach balls getting shot around, and maybe the Watchmen were on stage, and it was maybe Sunfest back in the 90s or something like that. But
look it up, kids. Look it up. Going on.
If there is a connection, between what Scott Arniel said to the Winnipeg Jets fan base and the reaction by the Winnipeg Jets fan base on this night, well done, fans, and well done, Scott Arniel, for making that connection and kind of showing the love of hockey that exists in Hockeyville, Winnipeg Hockeyville, at the tail end of an 11-game losing streak.
Yeah, and it just to be clear, I mean, this is one of those great examples where it's important to watch the video to get a little bit more context, because as usual, I think there were probably some folks who maybe didn't see the video of Scott Arniel speaking, and some people immediately they see when Scott Arniel's saying more, I need more from everybody, and then he brought the fans into it. People are thinking, oh, what do you mean fans aren't doing their job? Well, no, that's not what he was saying at all.
And that's an example that this has been hard on fans as well. It's been hard on players. Yeah.
And he said that, and he said, we have great fans, but it's one of those things where, if you can get a little bit of a lift from the hometown crowd, that's what he was saying. He wasn't saying, people need to buy more tickets and, this place has got to be packed and whatever else. He was saying that fans can make a difference by, being enthusiastic. And, we talk all the time about Winnipeg being such a sophisticated market, cheering for blocked shots and cheering for, plays that are made, like little subtle plays that don't show up on the score sheet. And that's what he meant. And he said his players can get a boost from that. And to me, Sean, that was not fans taking it personally. It was fans taking it to heart and saying, this building is a lot of fun when it's rocking and when it's full and when people are singing along and when they're into it on a power play or during a big penalty kill or a big save is made, big hit is made, all of these things. And that's sort of what I saw. And that's why I say, I mean, Friday night games are usually fun. It's a weekend, but I mean, it'd been pretty dark around the team the last while, Sean. We've listened to all the quotes, and this morning Adam Lowry and Dylan DeMello spoke, and again, there's enough belief in all those things in their voices, but this group needed a reward. They had been going through so much turmoil in terms of disappointment and frustration, and why is this happening? I mean, we're better than this. That's the mood that you were getting coming out of the room from leaders and guys who have been speaking. But it's hard to feel better about things unless you actually get a reward. And Sean, we talked about how Scott O'Neill's been handling things at the podium and with what he's saying, and with some of the tough decisions he's had to have made in the last little while in terms of scratching healthy veterans and making them healthy scratches, some of whom were never scratched before in their NHL career. Today he talked in his pregame message and shared it postgame in the media about going back to being that little kid and having joy and playing free. And that doesn't mean, abandoning the system or, not, shirking your responsibilities, but it means remember what it's like to go on the outdoor rink, maybe when you're playing with the older guys and, you get a chance to shine and, maybe you get that chance to, rub somebody out in the corner, get a great scoring chance, but to feel the joy on the ice. And that's sort of what you saw in the game. And yeah, I mean, we get it. I mean, this was two teams that are, not where they want to be. Spoke with Drew Doughty in the morning, Sean, and we talked about standards, and he said they're not happy at all. They think they're a playoff team. They're struggling at times as well. So Jets really needed that one, and they played with some joy in their game, and it's easier to play with joy when you're winning, but to find a way to dig deep and sort of remove some of the shackles that are related to that lack of confidence after seeing leads go kind of up in smoke. And not only that, Sean, rather than give up a goal in the second period today in the last minute or minute and a half, there's Eric Comrie making a big save on Jeff Malott, and then there's Mark Scheifele, getting a goal with 42.8 seconds left. Not only to, that it got tighter, but that they extended the lead and then were able to play with, confidence in locking down things in the third period. So, yeah, I mean, the atmosphere was important. And again, there's still 39 games left. We'll see what happens. This isn't a big declaration that the Jets are about to, jump into the 2019 St. Louis Blues situation, but they played a little bit more like they resembled what they wanted to look like. Now, let's see where that goes from here.
I'll say this. I think this is
There we go. Flame and
this
comfort.
is I think the flame and comfort comment, hot take of the game in Raxnahal. I think the crowd brought it tonight, guys. Most fun I've had in the building in a long time. You wouldn't have known we were on an 11-game losing streak. Ken, I wasn't there, so I can't comment on it. But what I can say is I've seen enough of these comments to understand that people went in there and they had a heck of a time here tonight. And I'm sure the Jets scoring and winning the way they did had something to do with it. But it feels like it started like, listen, if there was a team that you would have thought, well, maybe they'll blow this one based on the way they've played lately, it's the Winnipeg Jets, right? So to have that kind of festive atmosphere for as much as the game as they had, I think there's the good comment in here is the idea that, like, I don't know. I think back to when I was a kid, and I remember going to a whole bunch of games. I remember being to a lot of games that the Winnipeg Jets lost. And I remember going with my uncle Stan and my dad and just them sitting and and back in those days, people smoking away, right? So the guys beside you smoking. And I remember Uncle Stan would always get like those regular nachos in the little see-through tray with the little corner and the nacho sauce. And to me, that was like the most exotic treat that I had ever seen in my life, and just stuff like that. And I just remember every time I went to a game, it just felt like it was something. And I could just tell between my Uncle Stan and my dad, just the idea of them just getting out to a game and watching it together. It was like, sometimes that's enough, right? Like saw a lot of losing hockey in the 80s if you were going to watch the Winnipeg Jets, and just hearing jump played and just seeing the pixelated Thomas Steen after he got an assist up there, and just hearing the name Doug Smale, and me thinking when I was a kid, like, Doug Snail, right? Like everyone, go out and I'm Doug Snail when you're out playing.
Smale.
I know it's Snail, but when you're a little kid, it's Doug Snail. It's easier to say, right? But just to me, I think what Raxon Hall is kind of capturing here is the event sometimes is enough, right? The event is enough, and that I hearken back to the idea that I think this is a hockey town, regardless, and the hockey town's going to make it. I think tonight is an example of that, and that's why I think that this is the Flame and Comfort. Got you covered. Let me get rid of that. Flame and Comfort, got you covered. I'm all over the place here tonight. Flame and Comfort hot take brought to you by Flame and Comfort, Manitoba's premier supplier of fireplaces, wood stoves, inserts, and everything hearth related. After 50 years heating up your world, Flame and Comfort has moved to 1465 St. James Street. You'll find it is one of the most impressive showrooms in Western Canada. You don't need your hot takes to keep that warm feeling inside. You can visit Flame and Comfort, and they will take care of it for you. And I'm going to also say this, Ken, the Pristine Roofing wake-up call goes to the crowd on this night. Listen, I know that I'm offending some people in the chat room by suggesting for a second that Scott Arniel had anything to do with this. I apologize to you. I didn't mean to offend, but regardless, one way or another, whether it was Scott Arniel, whether it was the fans themselves, whether it was the team popping back in and winning, looks like the building got the Pristine Roofing wake-up call on this night. And that means, you know what that means. It means it's time to give North End Rick the Pristine Roofing wake-up call at 204-981-6289. He's the guy you want at your place for all your roofing, siding, and exterior needs. You can also call Pristine Roofing directly at 204-237-7663. Give your home the Pristine Roofing and Siding wake-up call. You will be glad that you did. Okay, Ken.
You shared your story. I used to get the old ice cream sandwich from Ken Sr. at the first intermission. That was my Jets game treat in the teenager days. Yes.
Wow.
Beautiful stuff. Yeah. Beautiful.
I don't ever
stuff.
remember getting one of those.
No. Okay.
I don't know that. You know what?
Nachos were exotic for you. Ice cream sandwiches for me.
Well, I never had any of the nachos because to me it looked like I was like, that's too spicy. It's because he said it was hot cheese. I was like, hot cheese? What are we doing here? Cheese is enough on its own, right?
Love it.
I will say this: I don't know that I got an ice cream sandwich, but I remember I got a Revel at one point because I was like, how do you keep this hard shell chocolate on this thing? Because it was just breaking off and falling all over the place, right? And I was like, I didn't want vanilla ice cream. I wanted chocolate ice cream. My dad was like, it's okay. It's covered in chocolate. And I was like, yeah, the floor is covered in chocolate now. So anyway, moving on from that, I did want to say this, Ken. Today was not only the return of a win for the Winnipeg Jets, not only a return for the boisterousness of the crowd of the Winnipeg Jets, but it's pretty evident to me at this stage that the hockey gods have returned to the Winnipeg Jets in their bounces. Now, I'll say this: a tipped puck is a tipped puck, but I do think some tips are very, very direct. Sometimes you're just reaching out trying to get a piece of it. So I think there's a tiny slight bit of hockey god bounce involved with Vladislav Nemestikov's goal. The next goal, the Jonathan Toews goal, you go hard to the net, good things happen. But even when good things are happening, to get a puck that is nowhere near. This isn't one of these shoot to the stick and redirect things. This is just shooting it towards the net. It's missing the net, goes off his skate, and then we'll get to the whole idea of the Mark. Like if Mark Scheifele passes that puck to the front of the net and it's on someone's stick, it's difficult to go roof daddy like that. But
Yeah.
when was the last, like, I'll say this, Ken, I don't think in this entire year where things have not gone right for the Winnipeg Jets, that an opposition team playing the Winnipeg Jets got as fortuitous a bounce as that Mark Scheifele bounce. Like, I mean, to throw a puck out front and have it go off the player's skate and roof daddy on the goaltender, I can't remember the last time I saw something like that.
Yeah, that's one of those where if you're Darcy Kemper, you're thinking like, what in the hell is going on here? I mean, and also even the fact that even got to Mark, like there was that sequence behind the net with Kyle and the defenseman, like kind of off the shin pad, kind of squeezes through to Mark on the other side. Mark is looking in front. It goes off Byfield's skate and goes up top. Yeah, I mean that's a huge bounce. That, I mean, the Jets, we understand, Sean. Like, games, it's a game of breaks. We get it. Kings got their own break. I mean, with Byfield going to the net, which is smart. Go to the net. Sometimes the puck bounces off of you.
Yep.
And again, that puck is also a beautiful tip by Taylor Ward in the high slot after the Fogle shot. So, I mean, again, both teams going to the net. Taves, again, his ability to go, shot from Miller off his skate, off the post. He's somehow behind Kemper, but it's not interference. Like, he doesn't make contact with Kemper, but he gets behind him and gets to the net and gets rewarded. Again, we know Jonathan hasn't scored in a long time. I think it was 28, 29 games, but he's now up to 5 points in 8 games out of the break. So he's rolling. I mean, that line looked really good tonight. Perfetti, another couple apples, Sean. I mean, these guys need to get going, and that line is really chipping in. And yes, one of the assists comes on a blended shift for Velarde, and one of them comes on the power play, but Velarde's rolling again, even though he hasn't, he's not full-time on the top line anymore. So, yeah, I mean, bounces are definitely happening. Even the Morrissey goal yesterday is a,
there you go.
There's a bounce there as well, right? So,
yeah.
It goes off two, a stick and a second stick and maybe off the pants of somebody. I mean, sometimes things happen when you're working hard, and the Jets were working, extra hard, if you will, today, and found a way they get a few more rewards in the game.
Well, and that's what I want to make clear, that I am acknowledging in this is the Jonathan Toews thing. It's go hard to the net. And so this is the thing about that, Ken, is what it reminded me was a lot of the offense that the Winnipeg Jets got in this game. And this is the one thing that I had found strange about the Jets this year and their inability to get depth scoring down the lineup, because so much. Now, I understand why some of the offense is missing based on my belief that this team isn't as fast as it was. And because of that, it can't forecheck the way it did. It can't turn over pucks the way it did. And it can't capitalize on those turned over pucks the way it did. Does everyone remember one of those games last year when they were playing the Colorado Avalanche? And it was the end of, I think, the second period or the first period. And Devon Toews had the puck in the corner. There's almost no time left on the clock. And all of a sudden, actually, Janssen-Fialbi comes flying in there and forces a decision out of Devon Toews, who just needs to hold the puck in the corner. This is an obvious thing, and ends up turning it over to Fialbi, who throws it out front, I believe, to Adam Lowry, and boom, it's in the back of the net. The Jets had so many goals like that last year where they're building off that offense. So I don't think that offense is as readily available to them this year, because they can't forecheck like that, and they don't have guys with that kind of speed who create that kind of chaos. But what they did have tons of success at last year was when they did get zone time, working the puck up high and just throwing it to the front of the net and getting to the front of the net and creating chaos. And yes, were there an abnormal amount of hockey god bounces? Yes, there were. Do I think that the Jets could continue scoring those kind of goals at the pace that they did last year? No, I don't believe they can, because I do think that there was an inordinate amount of luck that went in that direction. But that also was an example last year of the Winnipeg Jets making their own luck. And I thought tonight was a good example of the Winnipeg Jets making their own luck. Vladislav Nemeskov getting his stick on that puck. Jonathan Toews going hard to the net. That the defender in front is in not he's not facing Mark Scheifele. He's being tied up in front. He's being tied up in front. And so he's not worried about the direction his skates are going. And so is that one of the luckiest goals you'll ever see scored. Well, I think Mark Scheifele had 3 like that in the playoffs last year. If you remember him passing the puck and it going, there actually was one in one of the first 2 games, or was it the first game, where he passes the puck off a defender's skate and it goes through Daddy the exact same way. So Mark Scheifele is the beneficiary of those things, but he's the beneficiary of those things because the defenders are so tied up with the guy in front, because that guy is battling, that those things are more likely to happen. They're not likely, but they're more likely to happen. So I just thought tonight feels like an old-fashioned Jets win, because for maybe only the 3rd time this year, Ken, the Winnipeg Jets were able to sustain a full 60-minute effort. Part of that is building up the lead they were able to kind of sit back the way that they did in the 3rd period. And maybe, to your point, all the high danger chances, you didn't see it. Defend a little bit more, score effects. Let's just sit on this lead and make sure we bring it home. You can do that. So in situations like that, you don't have to play a full 60-minute game if you can put yourself up that much the way that they did. But to me, this was a little bit of a last year Winnipeg Jets win, just in the kind of offense they were able to generate. Eventually, it opens up those goals like Mark Scheifele got and Cole Koepke got. Nice goal by Cole Koepke. But the 3 goals that we're talking about are grinding goals in this situation. If you don't get those grinding goals, it's a 2-1 game, and it's a little bit of a different situation. I feel like the games that we've been seeing in the past, the Winnipeg Jets have been only getting those 2 goals, haven't been getting the 3 grinding goals, and all of a sudden things get tight. All of a sudden the other team has hope, and all of a sudden you're blowing a 2-1 lead, and now it's a 3-2 loss down the stretch here. So a good return, an earned return. The hockey gods came back, but it's because, check this out, Ken, the Winnipeg Jets made the right sacrifices to the hockey gods on this night. Vladislav Nemestikov, very first shift. Goes out, gets a goal after getting benched. We've had conversations about Nino Niederreiter and how he responded to it. We've had conversations, let's just not point out Nino Niederreiter, to a lot of the players who've been taken out of the lineup. And I was surprised David Gustafsson didn't come back into the lineup because of the way that he would come in last year and always put his imprint. What were your takeaways from Vladislav Nemestikov getting the goal that he had needed for so long right away after being taken out of the lineup?
Oh, I mean, you can't script a better start. Oh.
You're good.
Sorry. Okay, sorry. You can't script a better start than what Nemestikov had. Again, unhappy. Of course you're unhappy about not playing. You should be. You're an NHL player. You should be disappointed. But this is what a coach wants you to do, Sean. What does Scott Arniel always say when a guy's in a slump? Don't get farther away from the net. Same thing. Vladislav Nemestikov goes to the net. He's being checked, but he still gets his stick through to tip the puck. I mean, and again, you see on their celebration that just the relief that like pours over Nemestikov when he sees the puck go through the pads of Darcy Kemper. I mean, it's been more than a quarter of a season, and this is a guy that had 6 goals in 12 games, Sean. We were thinking Vladislav Nemestikov might get 20 this year, maybe even threaten a career high, but just went into a major deep freeze, 18 games without a point, healthy scratched. And, I liked his game. I mean, he played with a lot more confidence, I thought, Sean. Again, not a lot of crazy volume. He just had the 2 shots on net. He had a hit. But again, just more involved in the game, getting involved physically, checking. But Vladislav Nemestikov's a guy that, sometimes when you go into a slump, then it kind of bleeds into your defensive game and you're not getting any shot attempts. And today, he just looked like he was back to playing that versatile style where you can play him with anyone, and he gets going. And for Niederreiter, Sean, 18 games without a point. I mean, or 17 games without a point. So that's almost a quarter season, also. So for a guy who was also scratched recently, and didn't exactly, I guess game in Ottawa was suboptimal, I think, for him. But I thought he was a little bit better. Definitely better against the Oilers. And in this game today, he did a nice job. 1 assist, 4 shots, 6 shot attempts. So that's the most, involved Niederreiter has also been in the offensive part of the game in the last little stretch here. So anyways, both those guys needed to get rolling, and they did. And Nemestikov's response was exactly what a coach would want. And Scott Arniel was pumped for him. I mean, that's what you want from your players. You're not we said it last night, Sean. I expected him to be back in. I didn't know that Morgan Barron was going to be injured day to day, or that Neil Pionk would be out. But I expected Nemestikov to come back in, and as we talked about, I wanted to see what he looked like on a line with Adam Lowry, which is who he started his Jets career with, against none other than Connor McDavid way back when. So,
okay, abrupt end to that one.
Sorry.
Okay, no worries. Hey, I'll say this: if there was a guy who was going to come out of the lineup and go back in and respond well to the benching,
great candidate.
It's Vladislav Nemestikov, right? Because what has he been the entire time that he came here? He's been a guy who has been used as second line center, used on the fourth line, up and down the lineup. When they went out and they picked up Sean Monahan, he got moved down the lineup. Just one of the reasons they got Vladislav Nemestikov was because he's this guy who says, you know what, just do whatever you need with me. So he's a guy who has had no ego. So sometimes that's an ego check. And for him, I think the ego check was, I'm not going to get all high and mighty about this. I'm going to get the message. He got the message and responded on this night. And clearly he scored. And you too, folks, you too can score a great rate with Cambrian Credit Union. Getting a mortgage doesn't have to throw you off your game. While you focus on home sweet home, our friends at Team Cambrian Credit Union take care of the mortgage part with their low rates. Whether you're looking for a new home, renewing, or making the switch, Cambrian is your mortgage MVP. They can help make the next season of your mortgage path easier and help save you money. Now, that's what we call a win. Head to cambrian.mb.ca/rates for more, or go on down to one of your locals. If you head on down to the one on Henderson Highway, you may just see me and Mrs. Renny there, because it's time for us to renew our mortgage. So, and Ken, remind me to do this. I got to get a hold of the folks at Cambrian Credit Union, because one of our listeners, Jeff Johnson, wanted me to set something up with his daughter, and I had forgotten that until this moment. So I apologize, Jeff, if you are listening, and I think you will eventually at some point. Why don't you give Sweet Lou a shout out?
You bet. For folks who have realty needs you'd like to have met, contact Lou Ferlin at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@louferlin.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. Lou Ferlin, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this podcast.
All right,
quickly,
Ken.
one last one on Vladdy. He said after the game, one of the things that when you watch the game, from not being, in street clothes rather than being on the ice when people are coming at you 100 miles an hour, it's a reminder that you often have a little bit more time than you think when you're on the ice and things are happening at kind of warp speed. So I thought that he kind of played that way in this game again today. And it was interesting to listen to him say that, because, I mean, we know that our view from the press box, the game is super easy up there because you get the 3D view. You're not at ice level where people are, people with speed and size are coming at you kind of from all angles.
Okay, I wanted to bring up a comment here because the headband has been called for. I've seen that, and I think people understand that I didn't bring the headband. I'm sorry. I totally screwed that up. So people, I've been explaining I can't do the headband because I don't have the headband. And then Nicholas at night says anything can be a headband if you want it to be badly enough. A belt or a tie from a Vittorio Rossi suit that was no doubt packed, or a hotel towel or pillowcase. Headband bounces come from effort. This could not have been put better. So I'm going to do my best. I don't know if I'll pull this off. I'm going to run around the room while this tune's cranking and do my best to turn this into a Sean's headband version of the Kenny and Renny Show. Here we go. Ken, I feel like I pulled off the John Rambo in the background there. I'm not used to tying things like this, but hey,
good looking tie,
absolutely buddy. Right. It works well. And Nick at night, Nicholas at night, absolutely right. With the right kind of effort, special things can happen. And I can guarantee you're going to get the best effort, the absolute best effort out of the fine folks down at Myers Drugs. And hey, if you have any pharmaceutical needs, if you have any health food needs, or if you have any supplemental needs, you will get their best effort. And that effort, of course, includes delivering anywhere within the city of Winnipeg. So you don't need to worry about Myers. They'll go to the front of the net. They'll get dirty. They'll do the things to give you the right kind of bounces that you deserve when you are looking for a pharmacy to go to. Okay, Ken, I wanted to get to this because this is the question at this stage, because a lot of times what we talk about when a team is in a losing streak, you'll look back on that losing streak at some point, and sometimes it's followed by a little bit of a good stretch of hockey, and sometimes it's followed by that good stretch of hockey because before that losing streak ends, there are some good habits, some good things that are built up, and they finally culminate in a victory, and then things keep going from there. People are very excited about what happened in this game here tonight. They like the way the Winnipeg Jets played. The question that is on everyone's mind is what the Winnipeg Jets did here tonight sustainable? Can you see them doing this at a pace that they pull themselves out of the cellar of the basement of the NHL? And I'm not even going to start talking about playoffs. Are we at a stage where the Winnipeg Jets can potentially put their losing ways behind them? Because you can say whatever you want about 11-game losing streak. The Winnipeg Jets had established a solid pattern of losing before that losing streak. So are they on to something sustainable here, Ken?
Yeah, I mean that's the multi-million dollar question, right? So they've been searching for that formula, but Sean, I mean, what we've been talking about all year doesn't go away after one win, and that's the Jets have been in the situation recently, and the inability to put forth consistent efforts with that stack strong defensive play and the ability to score just haven't been there so far. Now, we talk about this all the time. Only way to change the narrative is to change the narrative. So I think that it's proper to be encouraged if you're a Jets fan, but I think it's also proper to be skeptical until they go out and do it. So I'm not here to say they're going to run off 11 in a row. I'm also not going to say here and say with certainty what we're going to see on Sunday, because Sean, the reason why the Jets are where they are is that they haven't stacked enough games like the one that we saw today, through 43 games. So again, I think that there are parts of that game that are certainly sustainable, and again, we've heard a lot about belief from the players. So now it's up to them to show it. So again, I'm not certain either way, but I do think that the Devils are a team that have been going through some challenging times themselves. So I don't think that they're going to roll into town thinking they're going to steamroll the Jets. I think they're going to come in with some urgency, and the Jets are going to have to match that because, with all due respect, one win out of 12 isn't something where they're, people are doing cartwheels and thinking that they're out of the sludge here that they've kind of found themselves in. But I do think that they can play more games that resemble that, Sean, but they're going to have to do it against higher quality of competition. I mean, we know that next week the Jets are going to play the Wild again, and the Wild are third in the NHL. So the team they played today wasn't at that height of their game. So first things first, they got to play a Devils team that's going through it. We often talk about trades that, sometimes the best moves you make are the ones you don't make. I don't think that that's been the case when it comes to the Devils being in the Quinn Hughes sweepstakes and seeing him go somewhere else. Again, we know that they've had issues before that, but it's hard to think that there aren't some remnants of disappointment that seeped into their game since that trade was made and he ended up somewhere else.
So I don't want to be a party pooper, but this is the part of the show where I do a little bit of pooping on your party. The Los Angeles Kings are a team that so one of the things that we've talked about on this stretch, and one of the problems the Winnipeg Jets have got themselves into in this situation, Stephen Braun says. So I hear you saying,
Braun. Well played.
Brilliant.
Well played.
Brilliant. the degree of difficulty went down a little bit in this game compared to where the Winnipeg Jets had been. The degree of difficulty went down in this game. The Los Angeles Kings are a team that's been a little bit lost. They're sub 500 in their last 10 games. They've been falling out of the playoff race here. Things are going on there. I was in Montreal when they acquired Phil Danault just before Christmas. Phil Danault had wanted out of LA. Something had gone very wrong there. And it seems like that whatever is going on there has kind of bled into the dressing room. The Los Angeles Kings are a little bit of a wounded duck right now, as the Anaheim Ducks are a little bit of a wounded duck right now, which is good news for the Winnipeg Jets, or for the people who are hoping that the Winnipeg Jets are able to push their way up towards the playoff race. But all that said, Los Angeles Kings, a team that's struggling. You play who's in front of you, but one of the problems that the Winnipeg Jets have ran into this season is the beginning of the year, the time where they were supposed to make hay, and they started making hay early, going 9-3 at the beginning of the season. They fell off at a time where, and you remember my analysis back in those days of the Winnipeg Jets game was like this, and the degree of difficulty went up, and they'd lose those games, and the degree of difficulty went down, and they'd lose those games, and eventually turned into the Winnipeg Jets losing and losing and losing and losing. Part of that had to do with the idea that the schedule changed, and the schedule got really tough, and we talked about it on one of the broadcasts that the Winnipeg Jets had, starting around December, one of the toughest remaining schedules in the NHL. So this is an example. I'm just tempering expectations. This is an example of the degree of difficulty going down in this game. The Jets caught a tough team, or a team that's in a bit of a tough time here. And to your point, Ken, if you go read up on what natural stat trick, and believe me, I'm not always on this. I'm not always buying into this. But the stat line here tells us that scoring chances against the Winnipeg Jets were 34 and they had 19. That's a wide discrepancy. High danger scoring chances 21-5. Again, I've been on this site before. All I can read is this. I saw a good chunk of the game. I didn't see the high danger chances that are being talked about here, but this is not a stat line against a struggling team that you would look at and you would say, yeah, they're on to something. They're about to get really consistent and they're about to go. So I think that you would need a little bit more of a dominant performance, although the score is 5-1. And the one thing about the Winnipeg Jets that I've found in the past is when they get their opportunities, they put them in the back of the net. But we also have to remember that we're talking about at least two fairly hockey god goals that happen in this game for the Winnipeg Jets that go for them. Everything kind of went for the Winnipeg Jets here tonight. Okay. And probably a little bit more. Puck luck was involved in this game. So you would need to see them do this against higher difficulty teams. And you would need to see them do it in a manner where they were a little bit more, even in the stat line to believe that the Winnipeg Jets were going in a certain direction. But that said, I will say the one thing that the Winnipeg Jets have going for them, and this sometimes is enough. If you're going to come out and give your best in a game, you're going to win some games, because a lot of times, and it hasn't happened a lot lately for the Jets, but a lot of times the other team is not going to be there giving their best. It didn't look like I don't think the LA Kings are capable of giving their best right now. And that's one of the things that happened in this game. But this is a point I'll just kind of turn to all the people who are, I get these questions all the time, Ken, I'm sure you do too. Has the team tuned out on Scott Arniel? And the one thing that I would say is, as this stretch has gone on, you've talked so much about the Winnipeg Jets being a team that, is one goal away from winning that one. And they had the Ottawa Senators, and they had the Minnesota Wild, and they, had the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they had the Edmonton Oilers kind of maybe twice, you know what I mean? And outperformed them, got goalied, all these different kind of things. You're not seeing the Winnipeg Jets entirely check out. You're seeing them compete over and over again. And my analysis, I still believe my analysis from the last little while, where I'd said for the vast majority of these games, the Winnipeg Jets can do good things, but when the other team elevates, they can't typically elevate to where the other team went. Well, tonight, the LA Kings couldn't elevate to where the Winnipeg Jets went. But the Winnipeg Jets, I do think are giving, I think they're trying. They're engaged. They're trying to figure a way out of this. They're getting into games. They're giving the effort. They're doing those things. Are they pulling off the 60 minutes? Usually, no, they're not. Like I said, this is maybe the third game I've seen this year where I've done that. And that alone should tell you shouldn't think that necessarily it's sustainable when all I can say is, hey, this is the third game out of 43 that the Winnipeg Jets have had a 60-minute effort. Sustainability comes from consistency, and if you can't consistently get a full 60 and you've only done it 3 times in 43 games, it's probably not going to happen. But what I will say is the Winnipeg, and I just pooped all over your party. I'm trying to give you maybe the other side of the cone and maybe reasons to believe is the Winnipeg Jets keep pushing, they keep trying, they keep skating, they haven't checked out on each other. A lot of you are asking it. Some of you will believe it. I don't believe they've checked out on their head coach. They're still pushing forward, and that at least gives them the opportunity to get better incrementally, make gains. But to what I said last night, the numbers are the numbers, including this game. And hey, they've been 100% since the last one, but a 70% winning percentage to get back to 91 points, which is a low bar already to make the playoffs. That's almost unlikely. So can they get sustainably better? Yes. Do you want them to? Well, if they're not going to make the playoffs, but they get sustainable and a little bit better to the degree that they fall to the place they're on here, it may not be exactly what people are looking for. Anyways, Ken, Johnson Group got you covered. Play of the game. What do you got?
Another Dylan. I think I mentioned. No, it was Stanley yesterday, but Dylan Sandberg had an excellent block. I think I sent it to you. I don't. Gonna have to double check the old notes here, but I thought that Sandberg was excellent in the game today. I think we've talked a lot about his hockey intelligence, and it took him a while to find his footing. But for me, I thought that he did a really good job at preventing another goal today with another good play with his stick. So that's what I'm going with. There were a couple, and also really good Perfetti back check in that game there.
Works for me. And that. Because it works for me, we're unanimous. That's the Kenny and Renny OGs, the Johnson Group got you covered play of the game. And hey, do you run a small business in Canada? Look to Canada's #1 employee benefits plan, Chambers Plan, to give you a competitive edge. Chambers Plan is the simple, stable, smart choice for over 30,000 businesses countrywide. So visit chamberplan.ca to learn more. And that brings us, Ken, to the hashtag the keg save of the game. What do you got?
Yeah, spoke to it earlier in the outing, and the save that Comrie makes on former Manitoba Moose and one-time Winnipeg Jet Jeff Malott late in the second period with about a minute and a half left, to me is it's not a turning point save, but it's the type of save that is required to allow the Jets to extend the lead, Sean, because based on how things have gone in 3 of the last 4 games, if Jeff Malott scores on the rebound and it's a 4-2 game, and all of a sudden that doesn't open the door for a hockey gods bounce from Scheifele off the skate of Quentin Byfield, and it's a 4-2 game going into the third. And then if the shots are 14-3, who knows how the Jets handle it. And instead, they got a big save when they needed one, and then they scored moments later and were able to extend the game and kind of, I'm not saying put it on cruise control, but they were able to comfortably go into the third and have that game kind of under control.
That works for me. That's both Ken's and my hashtag the keg save of the game. Doesn't matter what we think, though, matters what you think. Share with us your hashtag the keg save of the game. You're automatically entered to win a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations there in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. And our winner from our last show, that would be Matthew Hyman. Matthew, you know what to do. Direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Send me your full name. Send me an email. I'll have the fine folks at the keg send you a $50 gift certificate usable at any of the 3 fine keg locations there in the city of Winnipeg. Each location finer than the last. Ken, anything to say before we shut this down?
Yeah, ended yesterday with a Danny Zhilkin commentary. And Sean, I got to tell you, even more comfortable today. As I mentioned, Danny Zhilkin was going to be comfortable in this game, even though the emotional reservoir was probably pretty tapped. With all the joy and enthusiasm and adrenaline going into your first game, even though he only played the 7 minutes, everything from how he had to handle the morning and doing the hot lap and everything else, and then to have to play the next day would have been challenging, but he had energy. He had enthusiasm. I love the way he skated in this game, Sean. He got involved physically. He spent almost 2 minutes on the penalty kill, and he's just given a real speed injection. Early in the year when Parker Ford was in that spot, we talked about how, tenacious his game was and his ability to get involved and win some draws. I really like Jilkin's game today, Sean. He played almost 11 minutes. Yes, of course, in the third, it's easier to play the fourth line when it's a 4-goal lead. But I think it was important for that line to get a little bit more footing. Yes, they got a good goal. Kepke's goal is beautiful. The no-look pass Dylan Sandberg makes on the goal on the play to Kepke, outstanding. But Jilkin, Sean, again, small sample size, but Danny Jilkin, as far as I'm concerned, I think you can give him a longer leash here and let him show what he can do. Like I said, I think 157 on the kill. He had 1027 on 13 shifts after just under 7 in his first game. And yes, as pointed out here, his dad made it to the game today after arriving late in Winnipeg. Would have been just a huge thrill for the family. We talked about the story yesterday with them moving to Canada when Danny was 9 years old. For him to live that dream and get a chance here, just like I said, he's got enthusiasm and his skating ability has really given them a boost. And also too, Sean, we've talked about it for a couple months here. Cole Kepke, important for him to produce offensively because his speed can be an asset in this lineup for the Jets.
No doubt. Okay, that's it for us. Time for us to shut this down. Before we do, I want to say I appreciate everyone sticking around as late as they did. I know it took us
Awesome
a while
stuff
to get up here. Thank you for doing that. We very much appreciate it. And if you appreciate the conversations that we're having in this space, I would implore you to appreciate our sponsors who fight to keep the conversation going in this space. For us, that's Jim Pattison Toyota on Region, Vittorio Rossi, Cambrian Credit Union, Pristine Roofing, Sweet Lou Furlan, Flame and Comfort, Myers Drugs, the Kenny and Renny OGs at the Johnston Group, and of course the fine folks at the Keg. Thank you to them. Thank you to all of you. We'll see you on Sunday after the Winnipeg Jets play the New Jersey Devils. Talk to you then. Bye-bye.